Taekook make army shock? Why? Media cameras successfully captured an intimate moment when the two thought no one was watching in a quiet corner of the studio. From Taehyung protectively draping his thick jacket over Jungkook's shivering shoulders, to Jungkook gently massaging Taehyung's exhausted shoulders. This highly natural physical interaction instantly sparked hot rumors that their relationship has gone far beyond the boundaries of ordinary friendship. Staff members on set even testified that the couple seemed to have their own world, untouchable by anyone else. Although the director had warned them to keep their distance for the sake of the commercial's professionalism, the romantic vibe between the two failed to be hidden. These photos serve as absolute proof that there is a special relationship they've been intentionally hiding from the public spotlight all this time. Hello ARMY and everyone who just joined. Hope you're all doing well and staying healthy. Let's jump straight into today's video topic. Welcome back to Vkook. Caught on camera. Sweet moments of Taehyung and Jungkook caring for each other amidst Lemino commercial shoot. Under the dim lights of the majestic Namyangju studio, the aroma of warm coffee mingled with the tension of the crew preparing for the final shoot. The commercial project for the streaming platform Lemino that day carried an aesthetic winter concept, demanding its main cast to perform at their best amidst replica artificial snow. However, behind the camera lenses highlighting their professionalism, there was another, far warmer and more personal narrative being quietly written between its two biggest stars, Taehyung and Jungkook. Since the shoot began in the early hours of the morning, the atmosphere around the two of them felt so different. For the staff who had frequently worked with them, there was an invisible line that always collapsed whenever Taehyung and Jungkook were in the same room. In front of the camera, they were perfect colleagues, translating the commercial script with undeniable visual charm. Yet, the moment the director shouted, "Cut!" that professional world seemed to melt away, leaving a private space occupied only by the two of them. The temperature inside the studio gradually plummeted as night fell, leaving a thin mist in the air with every breath spoken. Jungkook, wearing only a thin satin shirt for his dancing scene, seemed to shiver slightly in the corner of the set while the crew rearranged the lighting. He tried to hide his cold by folding his arms across his chest, leaning against one of the decorative pillars while occasionally tapping his feet gently. Taehyung was across the room chatting with the stylist at the time, never truly took his eyes off the younger man. Ignoring the interruption of his assistant who wanted to touch up his makeup, Taehyung took wide strides across the studio cables strewn about. In his hand, he carried his own thick winter jacket made of black velvet, a warm coat he had just taken off a few minutes prior. Without a word, Taehyung approached from behind and draped the oversized jacket over Jungkook's broad shoulders, wrapping the shivering, delicate frame in his own warmth. Jungkook was startled for a moment, but a second later a highly familiar bunny smile spread across his face as he caught the scent of the familiar cologne from the jacket's collar. Taehyung didn't leave immediately. He stood there for a few seconds, rubbing Jungkook's arms from outside the jacket to help transfer warmth, while his eyes gazed softly, with a protective gleam that could not be hidden. The care was not one-sided, as moments later, it was Taehyung's turn to look exhausted. After doing repeated, dynamic takes of the dancing scene to get the best angles, Taehyung sat weakly on a folding chair in the corner of the studio. His breath was slightly short, and his head rested tiredly against the wooden wall behind him with eyes closed, trying to gather his remaining energy. Realizing this, Jungkook immediately moved without being asked by anyone. He walked over to Taehyung, then very naturally positioned himself behind the folding chair. His strong yet gentle fingers landed on Taehyung's tense shoulders, delivering rhythmic massages that slowly coaxed his partner's stiff muscles to relax. The touch was so familiar and caring, as if Jungkook knew exactly where the core of Taehyung's fatigue lay. Taehyung did not open his eyes, but his lips curled into a subtle, genuine smile, enjoying every touch Jungkook gave amidst the noisy bustle of the studio. To an outsider, the scene might have looked like an interaction between two supportive friends. However, to keen eyes noticing how Jungkook's thumb occasionally caressed the nape of Taehyung's neck with utmost tenderness, there was a depth of feeling that went far beyond the boundaries of ordinary friendship. A senior staff member on set could not even help but comment on the sweet habits of the two during the production process. They seemed to have their own world amidst the chaos of this shoot, the staff whispered with a small smile while watching the monitor. Every time the director shouts, "Cut!" they never go back to their respective waiting rooms. They immediately look at each other, sharing small laughs over things only the two of them understand, as if the hundreds of crew members around them are just a blurry background. This intimate and natural closeness shone brightly in the commercial footage being edited. Every time they were required to make eye contact for the scene, there was no pretense. A gleam of love and absolute comfort radiated clearly from the way they looked at each other. Behind the scenes of a grand Lemino commercial, Taehyung and Jungkook proved that true warmth is not created by studio lights or artificial snow, but by each other's presence. When the studio wall clock finally showed 2 in the morning, and the shoot was officially declared over, the two young men walked side by side toward the quiet underground parking lot. Under the dim sensor lights, their hands, which had been hidden beneath their long jacket sleeves, slowly intertwined, locking their fingers tightly in the silence of the night. For Taehyung and Jungkook, this journey home was no longer about work, but about returning to their true home, each other's warm embrace. However, the intense warmth between them was not without its challenges. As two global stars who were the main faces of the Lemino advertising campaign, they had to face strict professional demands. Just before the cameras actually rolled, on cam, the director called Taehyung and Jungkook to the monitor desk. Speaking very carefully, the director asked them to tone down the intensity of their excessive closeness in front of the camera, to keep the commercial concept feeling casual, universal, and focused on the product. Hearing the direction, there was a momentary silence between them. For Taehyung and Jungkook, who were used to sharing the same gravity, pretending to be strangers or limiting their interactions was a real internal struggle. As soon as the recording light turned red, their professional defenses were put to the test. Taehyung, who would normally naturally drape his arm around Jungkook's waist or hold his hand as they walked side by side, was forced to ball his hands into fists inside his pants pockets, resisting the instinctive urge to touch his partner. This sweet torture felt even more real for Jungkook during the official interview session with the Lemino promotional media. Sitting side by side on the studio sofa with microphones in hand, Jungkook had to exert all his focus not to constantly look at Taehyung. Every time Taehyung spoke and let out his signature low laugh, Jungkook reflexively turned, but he had to quickly throw his gaze back to the front camera with a smile forced to look as natural as possible. His round eyes were caught on camera a few times, stealing glances at Taehyung's lips, before he quickly cleared his throat and drank his mineral water to cover his nervousness. This struggle of restraint created a subtle tension that felt incredibly romantic to anyone who noticed it. There was a moment when they accidentally brushed shoulders while answering a media question at the same time. The minimal physical contact instantly made them both freeze for a full second, before sharing an awkward smile filled with secret codes known only to them. For Taehyung and Jungkook, hiding a storm of feelings under the studio lights and the gaze of hundreds of crew members was an art of its own. However, the boundaries set by the Lemino camera that day proved one thing. No matter how strictly they tried to restrain themselves and pretend to be strangers, the vibe of love between them was too massive to be fully suppressed. Their togetherness did not need the validation of a camera lens, because in their hearts, they knew where their true home was once all the studio lights finally went out. Leave your positive comments here. The best comment will be pinned as a way to honor their love. Thank you to everyone who continues to support this channel. May God reward all of your kindness. This video reflects my personal opinion and interpretation. It is made for entertainment purposes only and does not represent confirmed facts.